Welcome back to Whitt Acres. I'm doing my intro inside the top of the barn today because it is super windy outside and I don't think you'll be able to hear me. I've been trying to get a lot of things built this year for all the animals that are going to be coming to the homestead. I do have new animals coming. If you haven't heard, we have 2 new goats coming. So to get ready for these goats, I am building them a pen and shelter behind the barn. I am in the middle of building the pen right now, but I need to take a break from building the pen so I can get the shelter in place because the pen's gonna attach to it. So before I can get all the fence posts in and block my access to where I'm putting the shelter, I need to build the shelter. If you've been following along, you know I like to use stuff that I already have available to me at the homestead that my dad has been saving over the years. I have some wood set aside that we have from an old maple tree falling down, as well as taking down the front of the barn's lean-to. That wood will make the legs, and then I'm going to be tying them all together with the wood above me here that's been saved for decades. I also have some old saved fencing boards that we're going to use for the side walls, but I am going to end up covering this building with metal to keep it nice and windproof as well as rainproof because goats don't like the rain. I have metal lying everywhere, but without a doubt it'll probably end up being gray. It's only February, but it's over 70 degrees outside right now. If it wasn't for such high winds, it'd be a really nice day. Jump up. I don't think the wind's gonna let up, and it's supposed to rain tomorrow, so I want to get as much done with the backhoe that I can get done, and I'm gonna need the backhoe to lift these legs. So let's get to it. Now that I have the 4 corners in, I'm going to be attaching the fence to the goat shelter, which is going to be a box right here that juts out away from the goat fencing. So the fence is going to run this yellow line right with the front of the goat shelter, and then the shelter will go back. This is what I'm going to be using for legs. I'm going to be using these utility poles that came from the lean-to at the front of the barn as the front legs, and then I'm going to be cutting these branches that came from the big maple tree that fell down as the back legs. So hopefully I can make this work with the wood inside the barn and make a nice little shelter out here for the goats. Taking shelter in the chicken tractor that I'm still in the middle of working on, but I'm gonna have to take the wood down in the barn and measure it to see what size it is and see how much wood I have there before I actually set the size of my goat structure. If I was buying everything, I'd just pick a size and go with it, but since I'm salvaging materials that I already have, I have to see what I have before I can make a plan on how big to make it. Easily 13 feet of good wood, 4 boards each. This is going to get me pretty far. Can't do any talking outside, it's just way too windy, so I'm gonna come back in the barn and tell you what's going on. I'm putting some soil in where I'm putting the goat pen so it raises it up a little bit and it's not sitting in a low spot collecting water. Goats do not want to be in water. I'll be filling it up with dry bedding, but I just wanted to give it that extra little hump to keep it out of the sitting water up here. If I was a better operator, I wouldn't have to use the shovel and rake as much, but I do know how to use a shovel and rake, so it's no big problem. I can get it done. I also laid out the square on where my 4 corners are going to be, and to do the 4 corners and make it square, there's a little bit of math you can do. So to find square on all the corners, you use the Pythagorean theorem, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. If a is my 16-foot width and b is my 10-foot depth, then 16 squared plus 10 squared will give me 356 as my c². To get rid of the square, you need to square root the 356, which gives you 18.86 or something. 8.6 is close to about 10.5 inches, so I just went with 10.5 inches, and that is going to be close enough for my goat house. We're going to grab lunch and then start setting the legs. All right, we got a couple hot dogs and a burger in us, and we're ready to see if we can stand these posts up in all this wind. Well, I tried and I tried, but I could not get that post to stand up and then tie some supports to it. It just was not working out for me. I'm not a good enough operator, I guess, to set it up that way. So I'm gonna have to change my tactic up. And what I'm doing is building the whole front wall now, and then I'll stand it up like an old barn raising. So I got my 3 posts laid out here, and I went over to the maple pile and got a 8.5 foot center post cut. I did cut down the 2 utility poles to 8.5 feet as well, because once I tried to stand it up, I saw how tall it was and I didn't need 10-foot building. So I made them 8.5 feet, and now I brought out some boards that I'm going to make for the header. I'm going to interlock these two together. So I'm going to take out the top notch here and the bottom notch here and interlock those together straight across. You get it? As the header, and then add some 45s to this thing before I try and stand it up. Since this is thick board and it's rough cut, I figured I'd try and use the mini chainsaw instead of the circular saw.
I'm just sitting here, I got time, it's clear to see, up here, the world seems small. We can sit
It almost made it.
together. It's so beautiful, you and me, meant to be. The great outdoors, forever free. Sometimes you need to go and take a step back to see the truth around you. From a distance you can tell. You and me, meant to
Starting to think I'm not going to be able to build this by myself.
in the great outdoors, forever free.
I got another beautiful day, but it is windy again, so I'm not going to be able to do a lot of talking outside. I do have the header cut and laying here, so now I'm going to try and get the header onto the goat house front wall and then brace it with some 45s and some other scab wood to give it some structural strength. And then I'm going to try and lift it up with the backhoe and then brace it so everything stands upright, and I can work from there. Instead of trying to set each post individually, I'm going to build the whole front wall and just raise it up all at once. Pop, you ready to go outside and do some work? I got to take all the lumber out there and some tools. So I have 6 days, I believe, until the goats come. Like I said, I can keep them in the barn for a little bit, but I don't like to crowd the barn out and keep them with the chickens and try and scare the ducks with them. So I'd like to have them in their own space, so I'm really trying to get this goat pen done before they come. Should be ready to stand up now. I'm gonna go get some help. All right, so we got it standing and it is looking big. It's supposed to rain a bunch this week, so I don't know how much I'm going to be able to do on it. But the goats are supposed to come at the end of the week, so I'm going to try and poke away at it as the weather lets me. But for today, I think we're done. Look at that back there, though. That is big.